Hey Gator fans, so in this video we're going to be talking about Florida's men's basketball team once again beating the Georgia Bulldogs. And which was last night, the Gators beat the 18th ranked Georgia Bulldogs 92-77. By far the biggest win on Florida's schedule at this point, as we're 2 games into SEC play. Thomas Hogg put up another solid performance. This guy is clearly the best player on this basketball team, and right now he's performing as if he's going to be the next UF All-American after Walter Clayton. And he's really picking up the slack for Florida's backcourt, which we're going to get into later on in this discussion. UF's front court with Hogg and Condon and Rueben Chinyleu and Michael Henlockton coming in at certain moments have really wore down Georgia's smaller lineup throughout the game, which was also assisted by their center Sotmo Cyril, I think that's how you say his name, who got ejected after throwing an elbow to Rueben Chinyleu. And side note to the Cyril kid, if you're going to throw an elbow at Rueben Chinyleu, you should probably put on some weight muscle-wise. That way when you throw the elbow, it'll actually sting, because you threw an elbow at Chinyleu, and Chinyleu barely even flinched. Like, he just looked at the referee like, hey, you going to throw this guy out? He didn't even say ow. He just took the elbow and kept it pushing. But anyways, not only did U.S. front court wore Georgia down throughout the game, the relentless defensive pursuit and effort to match the tenacious rebounding that Florida typically does with how experienced their front court is, that really slowed down Georgia's tempo. And if you look at in the second half, Florida not only was matching the tempo that UGA was trying to place on them in the first half of the game, but then they actually exceeded UGA's tempo, and UGA couldn't match up with Florida's tempo in the second half. So UGA, that was trying to go at a fast pace, score, and full court press from one side of the court to the other side, that kind of went against them because Florida was matching that pace and that tempo, and they were bigger, stronger, and more physical than Georgia. So Georgia wore down much faster than UF did. If you look at the energy that Georgia had in the second half compared to the first half, it was night and day. First half, they were still flying around, still had some energy about them. Second half, they looked zapped. And then what happened was that in the second half, because they tired out, they started missing shots more. When basketball players get tired, they're more likely to miss shots. And they were missing shots, and Florida's rebounding, again, kept beating them out to what was already a big advantage for them in the front court, then got assisted by the ejection. And then Florida really started to distance themselves on that scoreboard. And we've seen it from, once again, Todd Golden and the Gators are a second half basketball team, and they've been that way for the last few years. And the adjustments that the Florida defense made, it helped really lock down the Georgia offense, which was at the time heading into the game the best offense in the SEC with the amount of points that they score. And once again, Florida just wore them down and took control of the game and walked away with the W. Todd Golden is now 1-7 against the Georgia Bulldogs. So the Gators are now 10-5 heading into another critical rivalry matchup with Tennessee this Saturday. And I just talked about Todd Golden's record with Mike White. Now, another thing I wanted to talk about during the game was that during the victory, Florida fans continuously chanted "Mike White sucks," which drew polarizing thoughts from those on the UF side, particularly Gator great Patrick Young, who I talked about earlier in the YouTube short. Before I go into my thoughts on White, it should be noted that the Gator Nation is one of the most passionate fan bases in NCAA sports, because the school is in a small company of schools that excel in football, baseball, well, maybe not football currently, but I'm saying like throughout their history, football, basketball, and baseball, Florida has been strong in all 3 of those departments. Very rarely do you get schools that are strong across all 3 at the board. So, and as well as Olympic sports, track, swimming, tennis, lacrosse, others. So that's why Florida fans are still so angry about Mike White, was that he didn't achieve at the level that he could have based on the talent that was in Gainesville during his tenure. And Mike White's legacy, as far as UF fans are concerned, it's either defended or ridiculed, depending upon which UF fan you run into. He coached in Gainesville for about 7 years, and then he amassed a 142-88 record, which is about 61.7%. And I'm pulling up his record right here just to make sure I didn't forget anything. In Mike White's time at Florida, hold on. In Mike White's time at Florida, I'm pulling up his wiki. He coached at Florida for 7 years. Like I said, was 142-88, just underneath 62% win percentage. But if you look at his NCAA performance, he only had one season where he went past the second round in the tournament. So that's where the frustration with Florida fans was that he had the players, but he just could not go further into the postseason than what you were expecting, losing to Oral Roberts in the second playoff game, and almost, and then making the NIT, only making the NIT in his first year and missing the NCAA tournament in his final season. It's not that he was a bad coach, excuse me, but he certainly did not perform up to the level that you demand as a UF fan, because that's just not good enough. And he wasn't bad, but he wasn't great. That's why Florida fans usually call him mid. Like, not great, kind of good, not really good, but not bad either. And Florida fans got called toxic for wanting him gone and all that. But it's just that you didn't do what was expected to be done at UF. And I don't think there's anything wrong with Florida fans saying, no, we should demand more as... Sorry, I had to blow something off my phone. As UF fans, is because the standard has now been risen. As opposed to guys like Mike Bianchi, who works for the Orlando Sentinel, who wrote an article calling fans spoiled and toxic when it came out that Mike White was headed to Georgia. Or that idiot from FS1, Tim Brando, who insults the Florida fan base at every opportunity that he gets. You can have high standards when the results rise up. Sorry, there's a motorcycle in the background. I'm outside. You can have higher expectations when the results rise up. Look at LSU. How quickly they fired Brian Kelly because he wasn't getting the job done. And LSU didn't really start winning in college football like that until the 2000s, when they had Nick Saban. And then Les Miles came and Ed Orgeron came. So they're going to have high expectations for Lane Kiffin, who's now coaching the football team. Just because you weren't good in one period of time does not mean you can no longer demand that if you've seen your team level up to a certain status, which the Florida basketball has done. Florida didn't make the NCAA tournament until I think it was the mid to late 80s. And now they've become one of the prominent figures in the NCAA tournament this century. Made the first Final Four appearance in the 90s. Then Billy Donovan came along, got Florida to their first national title game in 2000, and then won Florida's first two national titles in 06 and 07, made it back to the Final Four. Mike White, in his second year, almost made the Final Four, lost in the Elite Eight. And now, obviously, we've seen what we've gotten from Todd Golden. So you can have high expectations in Gainesville. Simply making the NCAA tournament and getting to the second round is not good for Florida. It's good for Georgia because before last year, the last NCAA tournament appearance that they had before they got beat down by Gonzaga last year was 2015 under, I believe it was Tom Crean or somebody else. I think it might have been Tom Crean. And Tom Crean for UGA was terrible. That's the reason why they went and got a Mike White, because they needed a fresh new start, just like Florida needed a fresh new start from Mike White. It's just that our results have become greater than expected. And at Florida, the standards are winning SEC tournaments and having deep runs into March Madness. Todd Golden just won his did both last year, winning both the NCAA and SEC conference tournament. And Florida has the second most national titles in the conference behind only Kentucky, and they're the only men's hoops program in the state of Florida, meaning Miami and Florida State and UCF and FAU included, and FIU and FAU and USF and all these basketball colleges that are in the state of Florida. Florida's the only one with the national championship. So a exit in the second round of the tournament is not necessarily a death sentence, but when you're consistently falling to lesser teams in the tournament, such as Oral Roberts, that's going to build up tension from the fan base, and the fact that they want to see more out of you. So so it doesn't make Mike White a bad coach. He just was not at the level that he needed to be at UF, and that's okay. So Mike White is at UGA, where the basketball standards are very low. Georgia hasn't even sniffed a Final Four since 1987. They've never won a national championship in basketball, and they're 7-13 overall in the NCAA tournament. So their standards are going to be easier to meet for him because they just don't have that experience, while Florida has the accolades to say, hey, you need to step it up because this is what we expect from you because of the guys before you. So that's just the difference where Mike White is at and where Florida was at. Two things can be true. Mike White is more comfortable in this spot at UGA, and Florida has won more during his departure. So that's just really it when it comes to Mike White. Do believe that we should not be making Mike White or his family uncomfortable in Gainesville. But as far as basketball criticism, I believe it's totally warranted. So that's really about it. I'm not gonna dwell on that too much because Todd Golden has proven that Florida fans were right in saying that we want more than what Mike White has given us, and Mike White is right that UGA is going to appreciate him more because, well, the standards are lower, so he doesn't have to, make a Final Four every other season like he would be expected to at Florida. So that's really about it. Thank you all for listening, and to hell with Georgia.